So welcome to this month's Korbyt Training Tuesday. So our topic for today is going to be weather options in Korbyt. So we're not actually looking at just one option. We're looking at a few of the different options available and ways to show weather information inside of the Korbyt signage system. So that's this month's topic. Next month, we're going to be talking about a new player interrupt option. Currently, scheduling an interrupt and takeover takes a couple steps, and it's not necessarily the most intuitive way to make that happen. So we are launching a new way to take over screen programming. We also have some new player analytics options that are coming to the platform. So those are going to be our May topic. But today's session is going to be all about weather, showing weather information inside of Korbyt. So the weather elements that we're going to be looking at today include OnTarget, our newer National Weather Service weather element, and two elements in the layout builder that are not specifically weather related, but can pull in information from weather sources. And that's going to be the external URL and HTML container. So in general, the weather options we're going to review today fall into two categories: static weather sources and dynamic weather sources. Dynamic weather sources are going to be the first ones we review. They include the OnTarget weather feature and the National Weather Service weather element. Those use player information to show a specific forecast and weather details for a specific location. And then there are static weather sources. These are ones where you are configuring something outside of Korbyt and then just using the Korbyt elements to display those sources. They're not going to tie directly to player location. So they also fall into two main categories: free in Korbyt versus paid in Korbyt. We are going to start with the most feature-rich option in Korbyt, the most controlled, the most dynamic, but also the one that costs money, and that's OnTarget. So if you haven't heard of our OnTarget feature before, or if you've seen it in the builder tool with the little crosshairs and wondered what's that about, OnTarget in the builder just is that element that you drag in. If you don't currently subscribe to OnTarget, there's going to be 0 options when you go into its menu to configure it. But there are more options than just weather. So it can pull in weather graphics. It can pull in weather forecast data and turn it into a ticker. It can also just be like one data point about weather information. But there's also sports news, top news. You can have inspirational quotes. It is through a third-party company that we partner with to provide all of this screen formatted content. So it is specifically a service that provides this type of information. It can even, at the highest levels of the product, it's very configurable. At the highest levels, it can connect to things like social media accounts and aggregate your social media and pull them in to be shown on your signage. So we'll start with our OnTarget weather options. So if we go into the Korbyt system, and we go to a layout, I'm going to start with just a new layout in the system as a blank design. And we'll call this OnTarget example. And we're going to grab our OnTarget element from the control panel. We're going to add that to the screen. And then we're going to use the settings to edit the element. And OnTarget is very customizable. So when you start to customize it, if you subscribe, the first choice you're going to be given is graphic or data. So if we go the graphical route, you can see that my OnTarget in my training system has a few options for like sports news, business news. Today we're focusing on weather local. So I'm going to select weather local. Now with weather local, it is going to use my web browser's location, or excuse me, my media player's location information to show the forecast. So it is not using my web browser here. This is not my forecast. I'm in upstate New York. I do not have 81 as a high today. I believe the default, if there's zero location information, is Korbyt's location in Texas. So you're not seeing your local forecast when you're just working in the builder tool. It is the media player that will fine tune and decide the forecast that you're going to show. It also requires you to set the location details in your media player. With graphical weather, you can customize how long the different slides show. You can decide the image behavior because these really are just images. So do you want them contained inside of the space? Do you want them to cover the space? Do you want to actually stretch them so that they fit exactly where you want them? You can set the interval for if you're displaying this like statically on a screen, how often does it check for new forecast details? These elements in OnTarget have titles and descriptions, and some of them you can just shrink to nothing. If it was a like a news article, I'd want the title and the actual text of the description to be different sizes. But for weather, you can shrink them down. And then lastly, you can pick which weather details you want. Do you want current or extended? These can also be configured to have more options in the OnTarget service, working with our support team, working with our professional service team. You can have more slides kind of detailed in the OnTarget system. And then you can decide which ones you actually want to show. So that's weather as a graphic from OnTarget. The other option through OnTarget is data. The data field usually is either stocks, if you've subscribed to that one, or just local weather. When you first select it, it just shows local weather information. The most usual use of this is to turn this into a ticker of weather information. And then decide you can customize units, how fast it goes. Do you see abbreviated or detailed weather information? I changed my text size, so it is messing with the text size as I translate it across. So I'm just going to start from scratch again on that for the data, weather, ticker. So it's ticking across. You can change, how fast is the ticker moving? How do you separate the different pieces of the forecast information? What forecast information do you want to show? What styling? So you have these choices how to style this ticker of weather data that you can then put on the bottom of a design so it ticks across. So that is the on-target weather option. The most involved, the most feature rich, the most dynamic, but also the one that costs money. What questions can I answer for you about OnTarget besides, Ed, how much money? That is a question that I am going to refer you to your account executive for because I do not handle the pricing. I just know that it does cost money. So what other questions besides price can I answer for you about the OnTarget weather option?
Hey Ed, I got a couple of questions.
Fire away.
Happy Tuesday. First off, you mentioned, especially around weather, that it ties to the device's location. Is it
Correct.
which specific field in the location does it tie to? Is it the city? Is it the state? Or is it the zip code?
So
Or you got to fill out the longitude, latitude?
it's going to vary based on the weather elements we cover today, the
Okay.
two of them. The on target uses zip code or like postal code, or if we're not in the US, it uses city state. Like it can vary. We recommend, full address. And from there, you can use the get latitude and longitude for the players because that's what our player location map on the dashboard uses, is the actual latitude and longitude. Basically, you want all of that filled out for complete coverage of dynamic weather information. Uh,
Understood. Okay.
but in the US, on target uses zip code. I believe off the top of my head, our National Weather Service uses latitude and longitude. So
Okay.
I say our National Weather Service, our element that connects to the National Weather Service uses latitude and longitude.
Understood.
Yep.
So specific to on target, I noticed that these layouts are primarily landscape. Is there any considerations or any flexibility to accommodate a portrait layout?
Not from the graphic options from our provider, because they're coming to us from that provider.
Okay.
What I have seen done is using the data, and instead of making it a ticker, so you can turn this back into just the data and the data points. And I have seen designs that use multiple of these on target elements around the screen. You customize, like, okay, up here, we're going to have like current temperature. So you actually go through, like, well, what is this going to show in this box? Current weather conditions and temperature. So you cycle this down to like just current. And now this is going to dynamically change for the addresses. And then you create another spot where you like lay out the forecast pieces. And you build that and lay it out kind of how you want them inside of a portrait shaped design. And then really the only thing you're missing compared to the graphic version is a pretty, weather-based picture on the background or whatever background you really want it to have. So that is like one of the ways that they on target can really be customized is down to like which data point you want to display for the weather. So that's a great question. Thank you, Joel, for asking. What other questions can I answer about on target weather options? Okay, going to remove that element from our design here. And now I'm actually going to switch to a newer weather element. It's just simply called weather. Now, this is a newer element. It was kind of rolled out. We did some testing with it. So it may or may not be visible in your tenant. If it is not visible, you can reach out to support@korbyt.com and just say, hey, we'd like to have the weather element turned on in our service. And they will turn it on for you. This weather element is free. How it works is in the builder tool, when you first add it, it is going to ask, do you want Korbyt to get your location information? And you can decide that you either allow it or don't. This does not affect when you send it out to the players. This is for in your browser. So if I say, hey, yes, while browsing the site, I will let it see my location. So now all of you know that when I say I'm in Albany, New York, I'm kind of technically lying. I'm in a suburb outside of Albany, technically outside of Schenectady, called Scotia, New York. So it's using my web browser to change my forecast. Now, this element really is designed to be full screen landscape. That is its kind of one view at the moment. We have, explored the possibility of building some others, but this is its one view at the moment, is a landscape design. Some other caveats with this element, the weather element. Sometimes it gets called the NWS element for National Weather Service. The source of information for this element is the United States National Weather Service, the government site providing that information. I share that because this only really works in the United States. So this weather element, it will not work outside of the US reliably because it is relying on the US government weather service data. I will also share with it relying on the National Weather Service, US government data. Um, this has been fairly reliable for us. There have been other things I have used in the past from just the National Weather Service website, like RSS feeds, that checking them in advance of today's class do not seem to be functioning at the moment. And I don't know if that's something where they've been discontinued and nobody's updated the site, or if they've just simply been turned off and are no longer supported by the National Weather Service. So just kind of bearing that in mind, this option is free, but with that free US government source, we are working with that source. So enough said there. So this element does have some customization in it. You do have the ability to pick different template styles. So here is the template 2, and you get two different views of the weather data. You can see hourly weather data, and you can see daily weather data. And the different templates, both template 1 and template 2, come with that either hourly or daily view. So the daily gives you the outlook, and the different styles do different things with the information. So it fills up the graph with like chances of the precipitation and shows the percentage in this template 1 style. It shows you the high for the day and the current. Template 2, if you stay on the daily view, it is showing you the high for the day and then the forecasts. If you switch to hourly in template 2, it's showing you the current temperature and then the hours. You also do have the ability, like you can see the Korbyt Anywhere logo here. You can change that. You do not need to show our logo in this. It lets you upload a logo file into the element. And you can change the icons, and you can change the background color. So you do get some stylistic choices with this element. It is limited, but it is also free. So it fits that balance. I will let you know I have seen some users that have decided to go into the custom SQL code section and actually use custom SQL to manipulate these elements in different ways. It turns into custom code. So you're just moving and shifting and affecting the way things design and show with custom SQL, CSS and JavaScript. Sorry, not SQL. CSS and JavaScript code. So that it is possible to manipulate them with that code after the fact when they get displayed. This National Weather Service weather element uses the latitude and longitude of the player. So this one I do know, Joel. This one is latitude and longitude. What questions can I answer for you about the National Weather Service weather element? I will share that when I've seen people use this and they want kind of the full screen weather data, what I have seen them typically do is have like the hourly as one layout and then create a second layout that is the daily and kind of playing them back to back so that you see like, hey, this is the current and the next few hours, and then here's the next few days forecasts. So that is the National Weather Service. It's free and dynamic. It will shift based on the player's location, but currently only supports inside the United States. The next two options that I'm going to show you rely on things outside of Korbyt as well, but it uses you customizing or finding or getting your source of data. The first one we'll talk about is the external URL element. So just in our builder tool, you can link to an external site. So if you have or are aware of an external site, such as the National Weather Service radar map, you can customize the location you want to see, get that web address, and use that web address here in the builder tool to display that website that is just showing weather detail. Thankfully, we've got some precipitation off to the west, so you can actually see that this radar map is moving. So, upsides of this, it's free. Downsides, this website is getting displayed as is. I can't decide like what parts of the website I want displayed. If the website doesn't allow me to change these pieces, I can't necessarily change these pieces. The other downside is the website that you are using has to support remote rendering in iframe/X frames. So not every site's going to allow that to happen. So for example, the National Weather Service radar map is working just fine. But if I were to go to like weather.com and say that I want to see the weather details for today's forecast, unless they've changed something. I have not tried this in a while. You know what they say about doing things for the first time recorded. Yeah. Oh, it actually is pulling in. How nice of them to actually let that come through now. It was not before. No, we're not actually getting all our data though. So typically, if it's not going to work, you get an error message. So they are letting it happen now, but you're going to have to see their advertisement spaces. I do know that with like their full screen weather map, that one I'm betting will still block itself. But the websites have to allow this. So if they're not going to allow remote rendering, you get an error message when you actually click that URL. But it looks like they've at least adjusted something on their web service to allow it to come in somewhat. So the other downside of using the external URL element is that you have to find that source and kind of test it. And if they change their policies around it, if that website doesn't work the same way, they have the ability to break your use of it. The other downside is this is not dynamic. So if I build this layout, I really am building this weather layout. I am going to have to name it based on the geography that's showing it. And if I want to show like the weather someplace else, I would have to build another layout that is showing specifically that website of information. It's not going to it's not going to be dynamic. It is static and set. Similarly, there are services that provide weather information and lots of other types of information as well through HTML code. So the site that we often go to for this when a client would like us to build it in, with that caveat that we're not running this website, is weatherwidget.io. So this is a service that lets you build a free, customized, responsive weather widget that knows, will match your website. That's what they're intending. That's their business model. They let you use this interface to design weather information. You have to tell it where you are looking to forecast. You can change the label though. Like if I didn't want it to be Glenville, if I wanted to also say, Scotia, I can change the label, change the labeling. You set the units. In other options, you can decide like how many day forecast you want to see. You can say 5. Do I want to see current and forecasted or both? What icons do I want to use? They have a few different options, a few different fonts to pick from. You can pick different like color themes, or you can get all the way into customizing it. Like it is actually a very nice service considering it is free. You do get to, drag it over and across to the sides to decide how, wide are you designing this for? So if I knew that I was building something that was 1920, it's going to go across the entire top. I can see what that's going to look like. I can set the length to 1920. Go with the pure theme there. And then I can get the code. So I am copying the HTML code to my clipboard, going back, going to grab the HTML container element from Korbyt. I find that it is best to kind of size it roughly the way you would like it to be before you ingest the code, because this is going to be a responsive element in your screen. Actually save it. There it goes. Just being impatient. So when we render it out, you can see my weather forecast showing up at the top of my radar map. Again, free, but not dynamic. So I'd have to build this for every instance, every location if I wanted to use something like this. The other thing to be aware of is the code itself is interactive. Like if you're wondering, like nothing is free, how they work as a business, at least from what I've been able to figure out, because they're designing themselves, put this in your company's website or put this on your own personal website. And then if somebody is at your website and clicks the weather, they are being taken to their weather page, which has advertisements as well. Just, they're getting ad traffic. Yeah, forecast7.com. So they're tracking views and able to show ads. You can see it's not exactly intrusive if somebody were to click on it. If this were signage, pure signage, no one has a way to click on it. So the only reason this would be a kind of a concern is if you were building that onto a kiosk where somebody could tap the screen and it will cause some challenges if it tries to open it, because it won't in your kiosk, but it'll try. So that is, again, another free option, dynamically kind of built into the screen through the HTML containers. The other option that I'm not going to go into today, but just so you know that it is a possibility, is if you have an RSS feed that you're aware of or that you find or that you prefer to use that has weather information in it, you could use a RSS adapter, a data adapter. I have one here for like the New York Times. So it is pulling the RSS information from that the New York Times is providing. And then you could build a layout that shows those specific data points that that RSS adapter is providing in. So like my New York Times one turns that RSS feed into actual like news information. So it could be weather information. Again, the downsides, you find the RSS feed and you trust it, and it's not necessarily going to be dynamic because those RSS feeds are typically regional or local. They're not usually providing all weather information that's possibly available. So it really depends how much you can filter it and make it dynamic is going to depend on the RSS weather feed. If it had forecasts by zip code, you could use the zip code on your player to filter and have a dynamic display. But it depends on the RSS feed at that point. What questions can I answer for you about those other two weather options using the external URL or the HTML container or any of our weather options we looked at today? Okay, I want to thank everyone for your participation. Thanks for joining us this week. Look forward to seeing you in our next session. Our next Training Tuesday session is going to be on player interrupt and takeover, that new player interrupt and takeover scheduling option that's coming to the platform. Thank you for joining and look forward to seeing you in other sessions.